Yes. Greetings and a very good afternoon, wherever you may be. Watford supporters, Omar here. Welcome to another brand new edition of Orns pre-match live here as we get ready to play versus Middlesbrough at the Vic at the top of the next hour. I'll be here until the bottom of this one to take your comments live on this stream. Welcome to this Orns WFC YouTube channel. It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so very much for being here, Watford supporters, as we get warmed up for this game coming up in just under an hour's time against Middlesbrough at the Vic. It should be quite an interesting game. This lineup, what do you think of this starting lineup that we've got here? Whoa, this starting lineup. Val has done a bit of switcheroo, don't you think? Val Ishmael has shuffled the deck here and has given you the following starting lineup. And I'm looking across at it now. Danny Batman, of course, in goal. That does not change. The captain, who has really bettered his performances of late, seems to really have found a new lease of life and confidence in that Watford goal. He, of course, starts. And then your back four is pretty much the same, although Ngakia comes in from the start at right back. And you've got, of course, your two central defenders, as you always know, Hoot and Porteous. But it's on the left side, Jamal Lewis, who comes in to start in this one. Jamal Lewis, who has been really good in very quietly, very good, I think, for Watford, comes in to start. Morris is not in the squad at all, and he's healthy as far as we know. So again, I think that Morris is somebody who just needs a little bit more time, is not really up to snuff at the minute. But you have Jamal Lewis coming in and taking that left back position, which I am not surprised at. I don't think James Morris has done a very awe-inspiring job so far this season, outside of maybe one game. But the bottom line is that you're beginning to see a shuffling of the deck from Val. And then the rest of the lineup, you've got Sierralta in the number 6 position, if you will. And then you've got Loser, who you are not surprised at seeing in the squad, but you've got Asprilla starting the game. Now, that's something I did not expect. So Asprilla comes in to start. That is a surprise. I did not expect that you'd see Asprilla start in this game. But hey, bingo, that's the way that goes. Change is afoot for Watford in this starting lineup. And then you've got the biggest change of all. Bio and Rajovic starting together up top. And so that is a 4-4-2, dear Watford fan. That is a 4-4-2. That's what it looks like to me. I think it's the first time this season that Val starts with a 4-4-2. Bio and Rajovic. And I've been calling for that. I've been looking at that. There have been a number of other Watford fans who have told me that they are very interested in seeing a 4-4-2, seeing that relationship develop between Bio and Rajovic. And now Val has given them what they have wanted with that particular change. So you've got what looks like a 4-4-2 here. And can't forget Tom Deli Bashiru as well. So you're going to have that going on as well in the mix. You'll probably have Cyril to sit back a little bit more to cover those back four, and then you'll have those other three in midfield just ahead of him, Loser, Asprilla, and Tom Deli Bashiru, with Asprilla, I would imagine, taking a more number 10 type-ish role, more forward-thinking role, sitting just behind the likes of Rajovic and Bio. So that's what I think you're going to be getting formation-wise. It looks like a 4-4-2, and it looks like a team that is trying something different. And I always think it's a good idea when you're dealing with the first 10 games or so of a season to shuffle the deck a little bit. Try to find out where your strengths and weaknesses are in match day time, in real time, on the pitch. And, I think the first 10 games of a season gives you that opportunity to see what you've got, see how your players are going in these situations. Yes, training is always important. Val has stressed that this week's training was very good and was very hard and tough, which is what you'd expect. But you want to put this into practice on the pitch. And today, Watford have an opportunity to do that against a Middlesbrough side, by the way, who's finding their feet now. The Middlesbrough team is finding their feet here in this particular championship after a slow start. Like last season, they had a rather slow start to the season. This season, the same. But of late, they've started to pick up points and start to pick up wins. And they also had a win in the Carabao Cup just this week, a couple of days ago now, 2 or 3 days ago, against the likes of Bradford away from home. So Middlesbrough are beginning to get up to speed here. Their first win in the championship was just last weekend against Southampton, whom they beat 2-1. By the way, Southampton are winning their game currently against Leeds. They were up 3-0 at halftime. I think it's at least 3-1 right now. But that game, of course, is always subject to change like any other one when it's ongoing as it is. So Middlesbrough beginning to pick up points, beginning to pick up confidence, and they've got some very dangerous players. We know that they can really hurt you, Middlesbrough. And of course, Watford have to be careful of that today at the Vic. I think Watford have to just go get them from the start here. Watford need an early score. They need to score early, just like they did last time that they got a win. And you remember they scored early. In fact, they scored early in the game that they didn't win in, the game against West Bromwich Albion after just 3 minutes. Tom Ince is on the bench today for Watford. And I didn't read out the bench. Ben Hamer is back in goal off the bench. Now, Ben Hamer, as you know, this week has some disciplinary issues. And so, look, you've got to, Ben Hamer's been around the block for Watford. He's been around the block as a footballer, as a goalkeeper. And to be late for training, to be late for team meetings is inexcusable at this stage. I can forgive that for a player who's a rookie player who's just come in. But, lateness is not good in anything. I'm someone, by the way, who hates to be late for anything. And so, and I'm not a professional footballer. So Ben Hamer's got to know what the rules are. I mean, it's just inexplicable to me that you would be a veteran footballer and you're coming into meetings late. It's just not a good look. And so Val had to discipline him. So he removed him from the bench last week. And look, that's the way it goes. If you're not going to abide by the simple rules that are put down, if you can't come to a team meeting or to a training session on time, I mean, you don't care. I don't care what the reason is. You've got to give a reason and give it well in advance if you're going to be late, if it's something serious, if it's an emergency. But if it's not an emergency, you can't just traipse in late. It sends a bad message to your teammates. It sends a message to the manager and the playing staff and the managerial staff. It sends a message to everybody that you don't give a rat's. You don't care. And I get it. Ben Hamer's played, 2 games for Watford since he's been here over the course of the last year or two? Well, I mean, you've come into this role. You're the number 2 goalkeeper. And many of us as Watford fans have said that we'd like to see another goalkeeper in here, at least to challenge Backman at minimum, because Ben Hamer, to us, some of us, doesn't cut the mustard. So, that's a bad job from Ben Hamer, and he's got to be punished for that. And Val's disciplined him. Whereas other managers might not have done that over the last few years. And it breeds this culture of, well, I can do whatever I want. Manager didn't punish me. Gaffer didn't punish me. Comme ci, comme ça. I'll just continue to do what I want to do. And it sends a bad message. So I think it was the right move. Obviously, Val has done this before with Loser. And so, you've got to sit these players or remove them if they're not going to abide by the simple. I mean, that's a simple rule. Don't be late for my training. Don't be late for the meetings. How difficult is that? But this is what happens in football. There are people who are not going to set a good example. And for me, Ben Hamer's out the door. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, Watford's squad is thin, but you've got to abide by the simple rules that are being set. If you can't abide by a rule like don't be late, show up on time, oh my God, that rule was drummed into me as a kid. At school, show up to school on time. Show up. I mean, be on time. It's a good thing to do. And as a professional footballer, if you can't show up on time for training or for a meeting, you really don't want to be there. You're really telling the world that you're not interested. You don't give a monkeys and you don't want to be there. So, okay, if Al says, well, if you don't want to be there, I'm not going to have you on the squad. And so he benched him from the bench. And I think that was the right thing. Now, Ben Hamer's back today as the substitute goalkeeper. And then you've got Tom Ince, who had been starting some of these games. He's on the bench today. Kone, who had, I think, 2 brilliant games. I didn't really, really watch a lot of the game against Leeds because of the technical problems with Hive Live, which they have since refunded. I'm glad Watford have done that. Thank you, Watford, for refunding the whole refund on Hive Live, which was a debacle last week. But the bottom line here, folks, is that Kone is back on the bench. Healy makes a return to the bench. And, I don't expect Healy's going to play, but Healy obviously is closer to coming back than I thought, because I didn't think you'd see him until October. Well, we're almost at October now. Maybe until after the All-Star, I keep saying All-Star break, the international break. But the bottom line is Healy. I'm looking at Healy there. Pollock is there as well. Both he and Healy were in the under-21s team this week. Chekatazde, or Georgie, as he is known, is in that bench role, as is Martins. Martins, that's the removal of the 4-3-3. Martins is now sitting down, so he's coming off the bench. What I expect that Val's going to do is turn this into a 4-3-3 at the time he needs to, even though it's going to start as a 4-4-2. I think he's going to switch things up and have Martins come in and make it a 3 Martins and maybe Ince. Then he might drop one of the strikers and then rearrange that middle and then do something there with that. So he might start to switch things up a little bit during the course of the game, depending on how the game goes. And then, of course, in the bench, you've got Ryan Andrews, who I think has been doing very well this season, like how he's played. And, of course, Kayembe is also on the bench as well. So that is your lineup off the bench. I've read you out the starting lineup and the now the bench lineup, and that's your squad today. And Morris not in the squad at all. And so I think we're going to see less and less of him, as I've said, I think a few days and weeks ago. James Morris is going to have to get a bit more seasoning. I'll be looking forward to see some of these other players like Toby Adeyemo, how he does when he comes back into the Watford plan for the first team. Ryan Andrews has been brilliant. I think Ryan Andrews has developed really well. Love what he's done. He's really grown. He's come of age, mature lad. I think he's excited to be here. He works hard, and I like to see more from Ryan Andrews. I mean, he's given you more. I'd like to see him progress even more. That's what I'm trying to say. As we get along here, I think Ryan Andrews is going to be captain of this Watford side someday. Down the line, not now, but down the line, Ryan Andrews is going to be a proper outfit for this Watford side. He'll be the club captain. Watch in a few years' time. He really does lead very well. I think he's a good player. He's a good person, which is more important than being a good player. And you want the right group of players here. I think Val's done a good job with that so far, knowing who the stronger players are, knowing how these players gel together, knowing how they're going to fit when shifts in systems take place, and knowing who he's got in terms of a mentality standpoint. Bio's got a strong mentality. He'll keep working hard for you. So I'm glad that you see that. And hopefully that will inspire Rajovic to put himself about more. I'd like to see Rajovic put himself about a lot more. He does. He's done it in the times he's scored, but I want to see him do that when he's off the ball. He makes the run. I like that he runs. He makes those runs, but I would like to see him keep pushing and keep doing what he's doing. I want to see that partnership build. It'll take some time, but it's good that Rajovic and Bio are starting together, puts a new wrinkle on things, and Asprilla starting as well. And I love Asprilla coming off the bench. I prefer him coming off the bench, but maybe Val is just shifting things about a bit here, because I think you do need a bit of a change. You do need a bit of a change. Middlesbrough come in here then looking to continue what they've been doing. I think they're now 2 or 3 unbeaten on the season, if you're including the Carabao Cup game, which they advanced. Of course, they beat Bradford, as I said, 2-0 the other day. They've got the manager who has been very good for them, Michael Carrick. After a slow start, they sacked their previous manager, and might have been Chris Wilder, actually. And then they ended up bringing in, or Jonathan Woodgate, whoever it was. And then they ended up bringing in Michael Carrick, who did a really good job from there, took them really far. got them really into an excellent position. And they went from there. I think they got to the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even remember. They either flirted with the playoffs or they got into the playoffs. So they did really well under him, and they were looking to do that again. They had Chuba Akpom, and he's gone. And they had Cameron Archer, and he's gone. I think Cameron Archer's at Sheffield United now in the Premier League. These players are players who have a lot of electricity to give, and they are players who are going to give you a maximum effort in front of goal and off goal. And so the way I look at it, I think that Middlesbrough still are not lacking for some good players. They've still got good players despite the absence of the departure of the players I just talked about. But I expect Middlesbrough to come into this game determined. They're going to play to frustrate. They're going to be physical. Watford have had some good results against Middlesbrough at the Vic in recent years, but and they've had a lot of draws against Middlesbrough as well. Of course, last season we know that Watford beat Middlesbrough in extra time and injury time when Bio, who's starting today, of course, got the winning goal on that very day, a very important day for Watford, the 100-year anniversary of Vicarage Road, Watford at the Vic. And of course, that was the goal that was scored in the 95th minute. I think it was the 96th minute that Bio scored in front of the Rookery to give Watford a come from behind win against Middlesbrough. Now, Watford today, again, as I say, are going to have to come at this game from the off. They're going to have to score early. I think it's very important that Watford get some momentum early and keep pushing, make Middlesbrough defenders defend in places that they don't want to. Make the day uncomfortable. When teams used to come to Vicarage Road back in the day, and I'm talking about in the 70s and especially in the 80s, it was an atmosphere that made the players from the opposing team uncomfortable. They knew that they were going to be in for a tough fight, aerial bombardment, right? Direct bombardment on the ground. They were, these players from other teams would come into the Vic knowing what they were in for, planting that seed in their minds. And so Watford have to start doing that again at home. Home form is going to have to be very, very, very important this season for Watford because they need to stabilize again and build a platform at home. They've lost just the one game at home in the early going. And I think Watford need to sustain a home platform. So they need to get 3 points today. Obviously, they need to get 3 points in any game that they play. But today is going to be an important game for Watford. You want to get a win here to bounce back from that very bad taste that Leeds gave you last week, where, again, I did not see the first half, but Leeds in the second half were well deserving winners. I mean, I don't think anybody of a Watford persuasion could come away from that game against Leeds, whether you saw one half or both halves, and look at that and go, well, Leeds didn't deserve to win. And the Leeds deserved to win the game. I think Watford in the second half were very stale. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons that Val is changing the lineup a bit. I think these training sessions during the week provided that impetus for Val to make a change, make a switch, do something different, make a different move on what was going on. I thought that that's why Val has done this today. Let's see how it pays off. Watford are going to have to work hard to get the win today. I think Watford need to score at least twice. If Watford don't score twice in this game, or they score less than 2 goals, I think it's going to be a tough day for them. Watford need to score at least twice to beat this team, I think. I would expect that Watford can win the game. Middlesbrough are going to make it very difficult. I think Watford have to game manage. That's still an issue. Avoid the silly mistakes. The defense has to stay tight, and you cannot give up so much space. And I think that's where these formation switches might help. Everybody has to track back and work hard. And first and foremost, if Watford can get off the blocks early with a goal, it'll calm the nerves. It will get these players into confidence mode. And I am confident they will end up going on to win the game. But Watford must score early, must score first. And I do think that they need to trouble Middlesbrough. Even in some of these games that Watford have won, or some of the games they've drawn, I don't think they've troubled the defenses as vigorously as they should. And we saw this against Leeds. They didn't trouble the Leeds defense. We saw this in the game, even the game where they drew against West Brom. I don't think they troubled West Brom enough I mean, they did have some moments against West Brom, but you wanted to see them trouble West Brom, sustained period of time. And you want to make these goalkeepers get busy. So Watford, I think, need to keep these goalkeepers busy and the opposing team. If Watford can do that, I think the goals will come. And I think this 4-4-2 could work. The two up top could work for Watford. I think that once that relationship gets established with Bio and Rajovic, I think that we could see some dividends being paid off. So all the very best of fortunes to Watford today, the men's first team taking on Middlesbrough exactly half an hour from now at the top of the hour at the Vic. I hope that if you're going to the Vic, that you are safe and sound and you get home safe as well, of course. Enjoy the game today. Let's hope for a Watford victory. We want 3 points against a very determined and very dogged Middlesbrough side who will definitely make life very difficult at Vicarage Road. Watford then against Middlesbrough at the top of the hour. Don't forget to join yours truly here for the Orns 10-minute take later on today. And of course, the Orns Twitter space that I do on X or Twitter at WFC. And of course, about half an hour after the end of the game, join me on Instagram at WFC there for Orns Extra on Instagram Live. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Orns Pre-Match Live, Watford versus Middlesbrough, the build-up to the game coming up at the Vic at the top of the hour. Thank you very much, everyone. Be well. Take care. Omar here. And until later on today, take care. Enjoy the game.